Perhaps they're like tuning into a spiritual realm of sorts. Anyway, for the individual may affect the spirituality. That is my assumption. Through prayer and through our attitudes is my main way I assume this all happens. Sure, I got Lucy with me right now. She's up on my shoulder. Anyway, so we affect everything with our prayers and with our attitudes, and they might reach far further than we think, perhaps even into the past, for the future might affect the past, and the future or the past might affect the future, perhaps in more ways than we realize. Why this weird sense of time? How could the future possibly affect the past and go backwards in time? Well, according to quantum physics, pretty much everything affects everything else, whether we realize it or not, through quantum interactions. So, in other words, if I were to interact with something else, and that second particle or being interacted with a third particle or being, then the effect of the third particle or being through the second being would affect me. So perhaps I might meet someone and then they might meet someone else. The third person might have a profound impact on them, and thus there might be some impact conveyed to me. Typically, this is undetected, of course, and there is very little, if any, evidence of this phenomenon actually occurring. Keep in mind, with the myriad of interactions of millions of people, well, not millions, but perhaps hundreds of people who you have met over the years, and that they all could be affecting you all at once, obviously many effects might cancel each other out. And perhaps that's why it's truly hard to detect and verify if such a phenomenon exists. Anyway, I think it might. So, we affect each other through this quantum physics type thing. And, as I said, our awareness, or not our awareness, our attitudes, well, our awareness too. We start with being aware of what's around us and our attitudes and other people's attitudes. Our attitudes, our prayers, our motivations, and our actions might have far-reaching consequences via this quantum physics notion that I just discussed about the future affecting the past and a third particle affecting a second particle, which interacts with both, and thus the third particle can affect the third or person with no direct interaction. I'm assuming it happens with people. It does happen with elementary quantum particles. I'm assuming this effect goes to a larger scale. So there's lots of things going on. But another element of all this is imaginary territories. But before we jump into the imaginary territories, there's just a little more quantum physics to cover. According to some theories, well, our perception creates all reality, and reality itself is created continuously, thousands of times per second. So instead of one creation, there's many creations, and we are in fact involved in constant creation. Also, according to quantum physics and according to the Chitmaran Buddhist tradition, there is no reality. All that we see around us is simply a common hallucination we all share in common because of our dualistic thinking, because we separate I from you, because we see ourselves as separate entities. We all have this common hallucination we call the world around us. Well, anyway, and so that all affects creation too, for perhaps creation is continuous, and Perhaps we, with our attitudes, are involved in it all the time, shaping it, unaware that we really are. And part of all this is the imaginary territories, which are our value systems and our motivations and our ideals. That's what will, in theory, live on beyond us after we die, in our soul or spirit. Much of this may survive, and assuming it does, that might be what's really important, not who we are or what we physically do in our world so much, but as to why we do it. What's our motivation? What's our value system? Where's our compassion? Where's our compassion at? And so on and so on. What drives us? Sure, that's important, and that might, as I say, affect creation in the sense of continuous creation. Anyway, so we have the imaginary territories. Well, that's all cool, but we also have the brain room.